Hey, Dido. I dived into your book by going to the practices, and the first one I went to was Ocean. Shall I tell you what happened? At first, I was affronted by all sorts of monsters coming up from a sort of a cynical mind that's become very used to criticising and looking critically at what people are saying. And
about the meditation.
Yes, in the meditation. And then I think I must have gone to sleep during it, because when I woke up, I felt very refreshed, and that kind of cynical part of myself just simply wasn't there. And I noticed that when I went out and spoke to my partner, Robin, it carried over into a lovely interaction with him. You know, that mind that would be normally saying, oh, come on, hurry up, get on with things. It just wasn't there. Tell me about the place of the ocean in your work and for you.
The first, when I was a child, my mother read me the Odyssey, the Greek myths, and the Odyssey was my favourite. He journeyed on the ocean, and there were all these monsters in the ocean, and there was this god of the ocean who was trying to drown him all the time, and then there were the sirens on the cliff and all these mythical figures. And we lived next to Wellington Harbour, and my dad used to take me out fishing in the boat when I was really young, so I was actually in a little boat on the ocean quite a lot.
Right.
In this little old wooden dinghy.
Wellington Harbour.
Yeah. With all the waves and the storms and the wind. And then my father actually did psychoanalysis when I was born, Freudian, and he brought me up on that. So I remember when I was listening to him talk about his work with that when I was a teenager. When I was listening to how the depth works and what how in psychoanalysis you bring up the things that are stored in your unconscious, you bring them to consciousness, and that means that a process can take place of healing and sorting out in the depth. I had this real sense of the depth like an ocean, as a place of, you can go down deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and there's this transformation process, this sort of primordial wisdom that is there, so that when you access that, you access a wisdom that isn't even just yours, that it's shared by all of us, the mythical. And so I got, yes, it was very much related to Wellington Harbour and real oceans. Similar kind of feeling of the currents and the darkness at the bottom. And I loved those creatures with lights on their noses. I think they were discovered around then. The light of awareness, you're right at the bottom of that ocean, and yet you have a little light of awareness on the end of your nose. I love that. Yeah.
So, I've dived once. It was an amazing experience, and I've snorkeled a few times. But coming up from that depth, back to the surface, or say coming out of a meditation back into life, into your everyday life. How does your work with that deeper realm, with the ocean and with your inner work, carry over into the outer work, how you're living, how you're spending your time, how you're interacting with others?
Oh, there's so much could be said about that.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing is the first thing is I try to live in that depth as if I was down deep in the ocean. I try to be there in my presence, with the kids that I live with or whatever, so that what comes through me is my depth wisdom. That's my hope. Sometimes I feel it more than others, that if I can live in that, and it's a very peaceful space, it's a very powerful, peaceful space down in the ocean. It's got a kind of, even though it's water and there's currents, there's a kind of deep steadiness and silence in there. so if I come from that, I feel as if I come from the depth wisdom which is actually beyond me, beyond little Dido, what she knows or thinks. Yeah?
Takes you back to that interconnectedness that you talk
Absolutely.
about quite a
Well,
lot in the book.
and you see, in the ocean, you have all the creatures. So we could go on about what it's like to meet a shark. You know what kind of things sharks are in our depth, and when you meet one of those glorious, those seahorses that have lots of leaves on them, and you know how amazing that is.
Aren't they gorgeous?
Yeah. So we have all these things in our depth. It's like all the different parts of us that we can meet. So we could spend a lot of time on that. But also just the water itself. The water itself is like the water, my mind. And it's everyone else's mind as well. I'm just a fish. You're a fish. You know, we're all fish in this big ocean that we share this kind of oceanic mind. And so I suppose that gives me a lot of, would you call it compassion, a lot of sense of that I'm in union with others, that I'm not sort of just a separate thing, you know, we're in the ocean. But there's also all this stuff about how things, you know, when I was diving or swimming with my diving goggles on, and you're down there and suddenly a fish appears out of the darkness and then it disappears. Well, that's a teaching about the nature of mind, that everything that happens in this life, like a dream, you know, all our life appears and disappears, and there's it's not fixed. You know?
My experience of the ocean meditation in your book was a very warm one. It took me to a very warm, wholesome space, and as I said, I had just a lovely unspoken interaction with my partner. I didn't talk about it. I was just coming from a different place, and so I think your book, you know, you're calling it a workbook for inner and outer climate. I think there are tools here that can equip us to be in this amazing world and with all its challenges and wonders.
And I put that one first because I wanted to set the scene for where we do this work. The work in this book is a particular style of meditation that in Tibet is practiced. It's not like what people think of as meditation, of kind of sitting there and getting rid of all your thoughts and kind of numbing out or something. People have this idea, you know, but which is not what we want to do with our life, you know, really. We want to train to be in our life. So this type of meditation trains us to be in our life, not go out of it. And so I put that meditation first to show us where we go. So the rest of the book is like the dreams that we find in our depth, and dealing with the monsters of the depth and meeting the beautiful bits, and so it sort of sets the scene. This is our method.
Good.
Yeah.
Brilliant.